Let's take advantage of the fact that hardly anyone knows the Yobaba system right now to win a ton of games. It's a system that's super easy to use, and on top of that, it hides some amazing tricks. So don't worry if you don't play the queen's pawn, because you'll only need to learn 3 or 4 moves to use this system in your games. So get ready to see one of the best systems out there that I've brought to this channel. We explained it a while back and you all really liked it, so let's get to it. When we play the queen's pawn, there are two popular responses. The first is that they also respond with the queen's pawn, and the other is that they move their knight to f6. These are the two most popular moves against the queen's pawn. We, against all odds, are going to play knight to c3 against both. Why do I say against all odds? Because here, the most common moves are either knight to f3, c4, or maybe even e3, but knight to c3 isn't played very often. However, it's a move that lets us play this system. What are we threatening? Well, now we're supporting the e4 square, so we're threatening this strong break to take over the whole center ourselves and develop our pieces comfortably. That's why now, they should try to fight for the center with the move knight to f6. What we want to do is play knight to f4. This is the Jobava system. You just need to memorize these 3 moves, d4, knight to c3, and bishop to f4. And from here, everything falls into place. A very, very common mistake that players who don't know this system make here is playing knight to c6. And here, they've pretty much already lost the game. Yes, that's right, you heard me. Just 3 moves in and they've already lost the game. Do you see how it's like an Italian game, but on the queen side? The Italian is played with this knight on f3 and this bishop on c4, but now it's even better than the Italian for pulling off the classic Fegatello attack, except here it's way more effective than on the king side. We're attacking the c7 square with both the knight and the bishop, and at this point, there's no way to stop it. I just can't believe how many games I've already won just with this. How can they try, I say try because it's impossible, try to stop this c7 square with the knight? Well, they could try playing e5, in which case all we have to do is capture that pawn with the bishop. It's true, now they can take it with the knight, but it doesn't matter at all, because look how it continues. You're going to love it. Knight takes bishop as the only way they have to try to get rid of one of these 2 pieces, otherwise we'll just take this pawn with check and then take the rook, right? We simply recapture this knight, threatening their knight, and we don't care where it goes. We don't care if it goes back to d7, to e4, to g4, it doesn't matter to us. For example, let's say it goes to e4. Well, we're just going to keep playing this incredible move that will give our opponents goosebumps. Queen takes d5, a queen sacrifice just for a pawn. I'm sure many of you already see why. Right now we're up 2 pawns, but even if they take our queen, we get it back very easily with the move knight takes c7. It checks the king, attacks the rook, attacks the queen, and when the king moves, we simply win the queen. That's the only way they can stop us from getting in, and in doing so, we end up 3 pawns ahead. And on top of that, the opponent's king can no longer castle, which is an extremely strong advantage. What I like most about the system is how easy it is to win with it. Let's see, for example, what happens if instead of playing d5, they play knight to f6 first. As I said, we're going to do the same thing, knight to c3. That's our plan. What for? To threaten playing e4 and take control of the whole center, allowing us to develop both bishops in a really solid way. That would be fantastic for us, but of course it's logical. They can and should prevent it with d5. Thank you. These 2 pieces defend against the e4 advance. Very good. How are we going to continue? Well, this system is so simple that we're just going to keep going the same way. Now then, if they play knight to c6, we've already seen that it's a huge mistake. We bring our knight to b5, and the pressure on c7 becomes impossible to defend. But still, a lot of times people know that knight to c6 is a serious mistake, right? So, for example, they play a move like e6. I see this move all the time. It's a much more correct move. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to continue. With our usual moves, e3, so we can develop our bishop, develop the knight, castle, and basically we're saying, let's see if you make the same mistake again, and if you play knight to c6, I'll do the same thing as before. Of course, the most common thing is that they won't play knight to c6, but if they do, here we go again, right? Why do I say that the most common thing is not for them to play knight to c6? Because usually in the queen's pawn opening, the c pawn is the one that moves to c5 to try to attack the center pawns of the white pieces. Those of you who have been playing the queen's gambit for a while already know that here black always plays c5. So we're going to go back to attacking in a really aggressive way. Knight to b5 is going to be our best ally in this system. While it's true that we haven't won immediately, our pressure is going to be so hard to defend against that they'll have to play super precisely. Because now, I'm not saying we win outright with this knight here, since the knight on b8 hasn't developed yet. It can now go to a6, which means it defends the a7 square. And we're going to play c3, and let's look at something. Right now, we're attacking this point, so the knight on a6 can't move. It's in a terrible situation. It also blocks the a pawn, which wants to kick out this knight, so this is kind of like a London system, right? A London system, but with a knight that's 1,000 times better. This knight on b5 is attacking this square, constant pressure, the bishop can't be developed, so we've got our opponent cornered, and as if that weren't enough, this knight can't be kicked out. What's the only way they have to get rid of this knight? Bishop to d7, threatening it. It's that simple. What are we going to do? Well, we're simply going to play a 4, an incredibly strong move. It's true they can take out our knight. If they don't, then we'll be able to keep up the pressure for the whole game, because that's the only way they have to relieve it. And when they capture, we'll recapture with the bishop. We get a check. As you can see, blocking with the queen would be a huge mistake, just like moving the king. The only reasonable move is to block with the knight, but even here it seems like black isn't doing that badly, right? But yes, they are actually in really bad shape. We're going to play knight to f straight. The difference between white and black is that white has an attacking plan and can move their pieces wherever they want with ease, while black can't move at all. The knight is pinned, and this knight is in a really bad spot, that's for sure. If I ask you what the most common move in this position is, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking the same thing. Knight to c7. This knight is in terrible shape, but it moves to a good square and also attacks the bishop on b5. This might seem like a really good move, and in fact, it's the most commonly played move in this position, but here we can actually win immediately. We just need to play bishop takes c7, and we win this knight in the exchange. And now, after they recapture with the queen, we simply go in with knight to e5, a spectacular bombshell, and now the knight on d7 can't be defended, it's pinned, and even though it's protected by the queen, that's not enough. No matter what they do, even if they bring the rook over, which would be the best move in the position, we're going to win material here. At the very least, we're going to win the exchange with bishop takes d7, though knight takes d7 also works. They have to recapture with the rook, and then we simply continue with knight takes d7. Queen takes d7, and we've reached a position where we're up the exchange. What does that mean? It means we have a rook in exchange for a minor piece, either a bishop or a knight. From here on out, the game is extremely comfortable for us. I have to warn you about one thing. There's only one way to stop our attack in the Jobava system, and you already know what it is. Our attack is based on coordinating our bishop and our knight so that both of them are aiming together at the c7 square, creating serious problems for our opponent, as we've just seen. There's only one way to stop it. But don't worry, because I'm going to show you how to play if they go a6, which is the only way to prevent our knight from landing on b5. But friends, you really don't need to worry about any of this, because we're going to keep playing in a completely normal and effective way. We're going to play e3. It's very simple, don't worry. It's suitable for everyone, even for elite players. There are elite players who use this system, and more are doing so. e3. Alright, here they can continue with many different nodes. The most logical move would probably be e6 to develop their bishop and play c5. That would be the most logical thing to do. As for us, we would continue with knight to f3. Maybe here, if you have more than 2300 elo, let's say 2200, 2300, I'll tell you that the most precise move is a3, alright? But for the rest of us mortals who have 2100, 2000, or even much less, like 1500, The best move is undoubtedly knight to f3, which is the one that gives us the most opportunities. The most common moves are bishop to e7, bishop to d6, and c5. If they play bishop to d6, there's something very important you need to know. Whenever you face these two bishops, you shouldn't worry about doubling your pawns. We can simply play bishop to d3, and if they capture you, now these two pawns are building the perfect square for our knight, and whenever they trade it for another knight, we'll place this pawn here and have an incredible position. So you should never worry if they played bishop to d6. You can just leave this bishop here and develop your other pieces. Simple, right? If they played bishop to d7, it's a pretty slow move, because at some point they're going to have to play c5, and that way they'll lose a tempo. So if they play bishop to e7, it's going to be the same as if they play c5, but with an extra tempo for you. Perfect. So let's see what happens if they play c5, which is what we're going to see in most games, because it's the only move that gives black a bit of counterplay. We would love to have this bishop on d3, but we can't. This is a typical detail of the London systems, the Cole system, because our bishop on d3, which would be great, can't be placed there now because they would play c4, right? And they'd force us to retreat. So, well, don't worry, because we're going to use a little trick to be able to develop the bishop to d3. It's as simple as this. First, we capture the pawn that can advance, and now we play the bishop to d3. It's that simple, right? Super simple. All right, so what have we achieved with this position? Well, for now, we have 4 pieces developed. Our opponent only has 2. We're going to castle on the next move, and we have a super comfortable game. Our opponent hasn't fallen for any tricks. They could keep developing normally, but even if they haven't fallen for any tricks, I'm going to show you what the plan is. For those games where there aren't any tricks, because our plan is simply, after castling, and once we've castled and developed all our pieces, to try to break with knight 4. This is going to be a key move. The idea is that if they capture, we are going to recapture with a knight. Let me show you. We recapture with the knight, and we have a really good position. Now we're threatening knight takes knight, queen takes, and pay attention to what we're threatening. For example, if we threaten the bishop and it moves, knight takes knight. Pretty much wins the game, because after queen takes, we trap our opponent's queen. This queen can't go anywhere. And I assure you, I've run into this situation many times. Therefore, here, if they capture this pawn, you recapture with the knight. If they capture you, well, you just keep capturing and nothing happens. And if not, you capture and trap their queen. But here, what I see most often when I advance is that they advance as well. And of course, now what happens is they're threatening our knight. We could pull it back, which would be a very good idea. I'm not going to say it wouldn't, but I absolutely love, and every time I do it, I win the game, getting into this kind of play. I threaten your knight and you threaten mine. If you move your knight away, absolutely nothing happens, because I can also move mine and attack you over here. Or even better, I can place it on e4, attack your bishop, and start an attack from here. So really, nothing happens at all. But what I see most often here when we make this advance is that people say, let's see what happens now. Here they capture here, I capture here, and they get into a game. So if we get into this exchange game, the only thing we've achieved is that our opponent has captured a b pawn, a pawn we don't care about at all. In fact, now we could continue with the rook over here. If they capture here, we capture here, and nothing happens. We've traded this b pawn, which we don't care about at all, for perhaps the most important pawn in our opponent's position. Now we're going to come in with the queen, with the knight, with both bishops, and we're going to end up delivering checkmate. But what I see most often here is that when we capture both knights, he's captured ours and we've captured his, you can see that this exchange is favorable for us, very favorable. And what they do is queen takes f6. And if you've been paying attention to the video, you'll know what to play here. All right, I'll give you 3 seconds to think. That's right, I gave you less time, but it doesn't matter. The correct move is bishop to g5, once again trapping the opponent's queen. As you can see, this queen can't go anywhere now. We've managed to trap it, thanks to the power of our 2 bishops. That's why it's so important to develop your pieces, as I mentioned, the bishop to d3. And since I want you to know how to play no matter what they do, I should explain what happens. What I just mentioned, when you break with e4, if they capture this pawn, because I see this happen so many times. It's not a good idea, but I see it happen. So, as I was saying, you capture with the knight, so that we're threatening knight takes, queen takes, and bishop to g5, winning the game. So people think, well, I'll just trade the knight, and now I'll trade the queen. And as you can see, we just reach a totally equal position where we don't have any advantage at all. Except that's not true. We actually have a spectacular advantage. The file is ours, they can't develop, this bishop can't get out anywhere. If it goes to d7, we'd capture it. If it goes to b7, they'd have to move this pawn, which would make them lose the knight. If they tried to move the rook first, then we'd capture it with the other bishop. As you can see, they really can't do anything at all. They're stuck. If they try to trade rooks and play rook to d8, we can trade rooks, for example, and then bring the other one in, so we're back in the same situation as before, or even leave both rooks facing each other. We're in an extremely superior position, no matter how much they've tried to trade pieces. Fewer pieces on the board doesn't mean they're definitely going to be saved. I almost forgot about a super important line, and it's one of my favorites. In the variation where they play, for example, the normal one where we play e3 and they immediately play c5, you all remember what I told you, right? We're in a jump with the knight to b5 directly. Lie. Because as long as they don't stop us with the move of 6, which I assure you they'll do only rarely, we're going to jump with the knight to b5, and here, how should they defend this point? Well, the only move they had was knight to a6, but there's an in-between move that people play against me a lot, and I love it when they do. I get really happy, and I'm going to show you why in this line. Before playing knight to a6, many times they play queen to a5 check, to which we won't respond with queen to e2, but instead we'll play c3, simply sticking to our system. Don't worry, this knight is well defended by the bishop, and now they do play knight to a6, so it's the same as before, but now the queen, instead of being on d8, is just a bit more active on the a5 square. How are we going to continue? Well, now we're going to continue in the same way as always. We're going to play knight to f3. This knight is indeed being attacked by the queen, but it's defended by the bishop, so this knight remains fakier. But I'm sure many of you are thinking the same thing as always. They play bishop to d7 to attack this knight with two pieces, and what you would have to do now is move this knight back to a3, and that's a really bad move, right? Well, no, what we're going to do is play a4. And here what we see is that this knight is well defended by the bishop, but at any moment they can play c4 and cut off the communication between our light squared bishop and the attacking knight. And I've run into this situation many times. At first, when I didn't know how to handle it, I really struggled because I thought, now I'm going to have to move this knight back, they're going to take my pawn, they're going to attack my queen, and it's a total disaster. But no, what you should do here, and remember this, is that it doesn't matter if they capture this knight and take a pawn, even a free pawn. It doesn't matter to us. Why? Because even if they take a pawn from us, no matter how much they take a pawn from us, they're going to waste too much time trying to win that pawn, and we're going to gain in development and attack, and this can end up working out really well for us. Our bishop usually wants to go to d3, as we already know, but in this case, obviously it can't go there, so we calmly play bishop to e2. Alright, they've managed to get their way by capturing this knight, with their bishop, so they win a pawn. They're forced to capture it, right, because the Klim is being attacked by our rook. And now, how are we going to continue? Well, simply by castling. And I lied to you when I said we were giving away a pawn because we were actually giving away two. But if they take this one, they're going to lose immediately. How, Chestager? It's just that easy. When they capture this pawn, yes, they'll have two extra pawns, but they dug their own grave. As I told you, this king stayed in the center for too long, didn't prioritize development, and with the move queen to a4 check, we're putting on a lot of pressure and winning the game immediately. We don't care what they do, how they get out of check. The only logical move here would be this one. And we're going to continue with the move rook from f to b1, so that we're threatening the queen. We don't care where the queen goes, she really doesn't have many options. She has to come over to this side here. And as you can see, we're about to win the game here, because the queen has moved away and our real objective was to get the rook onto the 7th rank. You know, that classic saying, put your rook on the 7th and you'll win the game. In this case, that's definitely true. It's clear that we're attacking this knight with two pieces. And not only that, but we're threatening queen takes knight, checkmate. So they absolutely have to defend this knight. Look how expensive it was for them to win those 2 pawns. How can this knight be defended? It wouldn't be possible with the rook because we'd win the other one. So the only way they can defend this knight is with another knight. 6. B8 is the only way they have, but that doesn't help them at all either, because all we have to do is ask ourselves, who is defending this knight? The other knight. Well, I just take it out with my bishop, and just like that, bishop takes. And now, whatever they do on the next move, we're simply going to play queen takes knight, winning the game immediately and delivering a huge checkmate to our opponent. I would love for you to try out this simple system. If you liked it, please, I'm asking you, really, leave me a like. It helps me a lot to keep recording day after day. So if you enjoyed this system, leave a like. Leave me whatever you want in the comments. I read all of you, even if I can't reply to everyone due to lack of time, obviously. But I love reading all your comments. And we'll see each other tomorrow, as always, in the next chess video, friends. Goodbye.